Some Cape police officers may soon carry overdose reversal medicine. We talk with Barnstable Deputy Chief Craig Tamish about the issue. A big party in Hyannis nets 5 arrests over the weekend. Plus, paid sick time is being debated this week on Beacon Hill. These stories on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, September 24th, 2013. I'm Sarah Mannel. Some police departments in the Bay State are arming officers with overdose reversal medication. Now, several Cape departments are considering doing so as well. Barnstable Deputy Chief Craig Tamish says police may be the first to arrive on the scene for an overdose call.
We're very fortunate in the town of Barnstable, where we have the 5 separate fire districts, to have a very impressive EMS system, emergency medical system within the town. Some towns that maybe don't have as many stations, don't have as many ambulances available, are not quite as fortunate as that. So our rescues respond very, very quickly. So we have not seen the need for the Narcan that I think some of the other towns may have seen. Not that there may not have been the overdoses, but the fact that the rescue is there so quick. Having said that, I mean, there are times that they are tied up, and it is certainly something that we are looking into. There are a host of issues, both legal and as far as the various police unions and change in circumstances of administering drugs such as that.
In the Bay State, there is currently a Good Samaritan law that protects 911 callers from being arrested for drug possession when they call for help in an overdose situation. A big party on General Patton Drive in Hyannis created quite a stir early Saturday morning. Tamish says officers were called to the home at 3:29 in the morning.
They arrived, they heard amplified music, somebody talking on a microphone. Officers approached the house and asked to speak to the homeowners or the occupants of the home. When someone did come to the door, they opened the door. They observed 150 to 250 people in and around the house. They started to talk to the person when one of the officers was assaulted by one of the residents of the home, and a Donnybrook ensued. The officers were pulled into the house, were surrounded. They had bottles thrown at them. The officers called for assistance. They were able to hold off the people. They called for assistance both from all Barnstable officers, and due to the size of the party and the events that were occurring, the disturbance that was occurring, they requested help from the Mass State Police and the Yarmouth Police Department, who both responded to the scene. Eventually, a total of 5 people were arrested. The party was broken up. The rest of the people were sent on their way.
Tamish says there were no major injuries resulting from the incident, although some officers suffered minor bumps and bruises. State Senator Dan Wolf joined Sarah Colvin on Barnstable this morning to talk about recent developments with the State Ethics Commission, and also a hearing taking place today on a bill that would provide many workers with paid sick time. Let's take a listen to a portion of that interview now.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Good. Heading up to Boston, we've got our hearing today on earned sick time, so it'll be an interesting day.
Oh, definitely. Very interesting indeed. Let's talk, first I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of get an update on the things that have been going on with you. I know that the Ethics Commission met last week and made some sort of a decision. Tell me a little bit about where we are now in terms of that whole thing.
Yeah, I guess the good news is when you and I signed off last Tuesday, it was unclear whether I'd even be the state senator this morning. So had they not made a ruling, I would have had to resign last Thursday after the hearing. So what they did relative to the state Senate seat is they indefinitely extended the period by which I'm not technically in conflict unless I resign. So they said, look, we need to take a look at this further. There is a lot of merit to what you're saying, but if we're going to craft a regulation that keeps you out of conflict, it's going to take some time. So we'll allow you to stay in the Senate while we're deliberating this. Then they took a look at the petition that was signed by some of the, I would say, state experts in ethics, people who have served on the commission, the ex-executive director of the commission, several Superior Court judges from the past, a couple of past attorney generals. The people who had signed on to that petition were sort of the best and the brightest on ethics, but the Ethics Commission, in their wisdom, outright rejected that petition. What they did say, however, is they wanted time to have their staff look at crafting a regulation which might, in effect, relative to my situation, have the same outcome, which potentially could keep me out of conflict and allow me to stay in the Senate, potentially even run for governor. So to sum it, they gave me a stay of execution. They rejected the petition that was filed by the 11 or 12 petitioners that had filed it, and they then directed their staff to see if there was, in fact, a credible regulation. It's a joke. I mean, I have to be honest with you. There were 100 people in the commission meeting. I don't think there was a single person there that thought that the relationship between Cape Air and Logan Airport and Dan Wolf as state senator constituted an iota of risk for any of the citizens of Massachusetts. And yet that's the best we could do last Thursday.
So really, you're still serving as senator, but still kind of in a state of limbo in terms of what the future might hold. Now, is this putting any damper on your campaign for governor, or are you still allowed to campaign at this time?
Well, I could campaign because the Ethics Commission can't tell me whether I can run for governor, nor can they tell me whether I can be elected.
Right.
But what they tell me is if I take office and nothing changes, I could be in conflict. So that's not a situation under which you can run a healthy campaign, because you need to raise funds and you need to really speak on the issues. And every time I go to until this is resolved, every time I go to a public event, it isn't about building the economy from the middle out, doing all the exciting things you and I have talked about for the past couple of years. It just comes down to this ethics situation. So until that gets resolved, I have decided to keep my campaign suspended. And what happens eventually is the clock runs out, because if it stays suspended until next November, obviously I haven't run a campaign. So I think, realistically, I have a couple of months to be suspended and still jump back in. But, the process that they outlined on Thursday, I would guess is at best case a month and a half to 2 month process. So, the prospects of me moving ahead and running a healthy campaign are mixed, to be honest with you. And so I don't want to gild the lily. And I'm concerned about whether or not they're going to actually come up with a regulation that allows me to stay in the state Senate, which I have to say, again, from my perspective, is absurd, because no one has given me a credible explanation of how those relationships in any way puts the citizens of Massachusetts in any kind of ethics or financial risk. It's just absurd.
Indeed. Well, let's certainly hope that they do come to a decision in a timely fashion, Senator. Certainly, it's got to be frustrating. You know what? You mentioned that you were on your way up to a hearing about earned sick time, and I think I'm going to veer off my original course and ask you a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of that.
Well, two things. One is, as you know, for the past 5 or 6 years, going back to before when I served in the Senate, this bill has been kicking around. It's made it out of committee a couple times, but never gone anywhere. And this is the bill that would allow businesses or mandate businesses of a certain size to do what most countries in the free world do, which is legislatively they have required companies that to give a certain amount of earned sick time to employees who work there, so that sick employees are not forced to come to work. Or if there's a sick loved one at home, either a child or an elder or a significant other, that the person can stay at home without compromising the ability to put bread on the table at the end of the week, or to pay for their heat or housing or whatever. So this is a bill that most countries of the world passed years and years ago. It's not going to happen on a national level just because of the landscape in Washington now. And for some reason in Massachusetts, we keep having trouble even moving it far.
The paid sick time hearing took place today on Beacon Hill. Wolf hopes the bill will soon move out of committee. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.